The sun was a merciless hammer in the vast, empty sky of the Nevada desert. It beat down on the cracked earth, on the skeletal remains of cacti, and on the splintered axle of the wagon that was supposed to be their future. Martha shielded her eyes, the gritty wind stinging her face. Beside her, Jedediah kicked a loose stone, his face a mask of frustration and contempt. "This is your fault," he spat, the words as dry as the air around them. "Always wanting to take the scenic route. Look where it got us, stranded." "My fault," Martha's voice was a hoarse whisper. Her throat felt like sandpaper. "You were the one who insisted we could make it to Carson City with half the supplies we needed. You said buying more was a waste of money." Jed scoffed, avoiding her gaze. He looked at their last horse, tethered to a stubborn mesquite tree, its head hanging low. He looked at the two canteens, both bone dry. Then his eyes landed on her, and there was no warmth in them, only cold calculation. "I'm going," he said flatly. "I can make it to the next town on horseback by nightfall. I'll send back help." A cold dread, colder than any desert night, washed over Martha. "We go together, Jed. Or we stay together." He just shook his head, untying the horse. "You'll slow me down." He didn't even have the decency to look her in the eye as he mounted. He took the empty canteens, as if for show. All he left behind was the broken wagon, a crate of worthless heirlooms, and the cheap brass ring on her finger that suddenly felt like a shackle. She watched him ride away, a shrinking figure against the shimmering heat haze, until he was just a speck, and then nothing at all. The silence he left was heavier than any sound she had ever known. The promise of California was a shimmering thing on the horizon, as intoxicating and unreliable as the heat haze rising from the cracked earth of the Nevada desert. For weeks, that promise had been Jed's favorite melody. He'd hum it under his breath while mending the harnesses, his voice full of a confidence Martha had once mistaken for strength. "Just you wait, Marty," he'd said just 3 days prior, gesturing with a piece of hardtack towards the endless expanse of sagebrush. "A little plot of land, green as you please. No more factory dust for you, just clean air and our own soil." She had smiled, her heart clutching onto those words like a lifeline. She'd poured her meager savings, every last cent earned from years of mending fine ladies' dresses in a stuffy Boston workshop, into this dream. Into his dream. But as the sun beat down relentlessly, her optimism was beginning to fray like the canvas cover of their wagon. "Jed, are you sure about this route?" she'd asked a day ago, her voice quiet, not wanting to challenge him. The man at the last outpost said the main trail was safer, even if it's longer. Jed had scoffed, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of a grimy hand. "Safer for old men and cowards. This cut-through will save us a week. A week, Marty, think of it. We'll get the pick of the land." His charm was a shield he used to deflect any doubt. She didn't argue further, but a knot of dread had settled in her stomach, heavy and cold despite the oppressive heat. The feeling only intensified when the wagon wheel had lurched violently, cracking with a sound like a gunshot in the vast silence. Jed had cursed, kicked the wheel, and then looked at the horizon, his eyes already searching for an escape that didn't include her or the broken-down vessel of their shared future. The air in St. George, Utah, was thick with the dust of 100 other dreams heading west. Our wagon, packed tight with my life's savings converted into flour, salt pork, and tools, felt like a ship poised on the edge of a vast, dry ocean. Jedediah, my Jed, was all smiles and boundless energy, his voice booming over the morning clamor of the town. "This is it, Martha Bell," he declared, hoisting the last barrel of water onto the wagon with a theatrical grunt. "The final stretch. California's just over that horizon, gleaming with gold and opportunity." I managed a tight smile, tucking a stray strand of hair back under my bonnet. "The man at the mercantile, Mr. Abernathy, he said the old Spanish trail is safer this time of year." Jed scoffed, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. He stepped close, his charm a familiar, warm blanket. "Abernathy's an old woman, sells shovels but has never dug a day in his life. I have a map, a new one showing a cut-through, shaves a week off the journey." "A week, Martha." We'll be sipping cool lemonade on our own porch, while Abernathy's customers are still choking on dust. His confidence was a current, and it was so easy to be swept away by it. He saw my hesitation and framed my face with his hands. "Trust me, when have I ever led you astray?" he whispered, his blue eyes as vast and promising as the sky above. I nodded, wanting so desperately to believe him, to see the world through his fearless gaze. As he clicked the reins and our wagon rolled out of town, leaving the last outpost of civilization behind, I pushed my doubts down. I chose to trust him. It was a choice that would cost me everything. The air incense, George, Utah, was thick with red dust and the scent of sagebrush. It was the last real outpost before the vast, unforgiving expanse leading to California, and Martha felt a knot of apprehension tighten in her stomach. Every penny she had saved, earned from years of mending clothes and keeping house, was tied up in their covered wagon and the dream Jed had sold her. "It's the final push, darling," Jed said, his voice brimming with the easy confidence that had first captivated her. He draped an arm over her shoulder, pointing at a line on their worn map. "This shortcut through the Nevada territory will shave weeks off our journey." A grizzled old prospector, overhearing them in front of the general store, spat a stream of tobacco juice near their feet. "That ain't a shortcut, son. It's a graveyard. No water, no shade. Folks call it the Devil's Anvil for a reason." Martha's gaze met the old man's, and she saw a stark warning in his sun-creased eyes. "Jed, maybe we should listen," she whispered, her hand clutching the wagon's canvas. "We have enough supplies for the long trail." Jed just laughed, a sound that was usually a comfort but now felt dismissive. "Don't you listen to that old fearmonger, Martha. He's just bitter he never found his fortune. We're smarter. We'll be sipping cool wine in our own California home while he's still sifting through dust." He squeezed her shoulder, his charm washing over her doubts like a flash flood. He made the future sound so certain, so bright, that her fears felt foolish. Against her better judgment, she nodded, allowing his ambition to eclipse her intuition. As they rolled out of St. George, leaving the last vestiges of civilization behind, a cold dread lingered, a stark contrast to the blazing sun climbing in the sky. The air in St. George, Utah, was thick with red dust and the scent of sagebrush. It was the last real town before the vast, unforgiving expanse that led to California, and it felt like standing on the edge of the world. I clutched my shawl tighter, watching Jedediah charm the stable hand while our horse, Balthazar, was fitted with new shoes. My life savings, every last dollar from selling my family's farm back east, was tied up in this wagon, this horse, and the promise in Jed's bright, confident eyes. "You folks ain't thinking of taking the Alkali Flat Trail, are you?" an old man asked, his voice raspy like sandpaper. He was leaning against a post, whittling a piece of wood, his face a roadmap of wrinkles carved by decades under the sun. Jed turned, his smile unwavering. "Fastest way, old-timer. We aim to be in California before the first snow." The man spat a stream of tobacco juice near his own boots. "Fastest way to meet your maker, maybe. That ain't a trail. It's a boneyard, no water, no shade. Wagon wheels splinter on that salt pan like kindling." A shiver traced its way down my spine. His words echoed my own private fears. I looked at Jed, hoping he'd heed the warning. Instead, he just laughed, clapping the man on the shoulder. "We appreciate the concern, but we're well supplied. Besides, fortune favors the bold." Later, as we loaded the last of the flour sacks, I voiced my unease. "Jed, maybe we should listen to him. What's a few more weeks on the main trail?" He stopped and took my hands, his gaze intense. "Martha, my love, do you trust me?" He didn't wait for an answer. "Those old prospectors are full of ghost stories. This shortcut will save us weeks and money. Think of the head start we'll have. Our new life is waiting just over that horizon." He painted the picture so vividly, so beautifully, that my doubts felt like a betrayal. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat, and allowed his confidence to silence the screaming voice in my gut. St. George, Utah, baked under the relentless sun, the last pocket of civilization before the vast, unforgiving expanse leading to California. The air was thick with dust and the sounds of a town on the edge of the world. The clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the braying of mules, and the low murmur of anxious conversations. For me, Martha, it was the final, hopeful breath before the plunge. All my life savings, every penny earned from years of sewing and saving, was tied up in the sturdy wagon Jed and I had purchased, packed with dreams of a new life. Jed, my fiancé, was all restless energy and brilliant smiles. He saw the desert not as a threat, but as a challenge to be conquered quickly. We'll be sipping wine in San Francisco while these other folks are still eating dust, he'd promised, his hand squeezing mine. That afternoon, as Jed was securing a loose barrel, an old prospector named Silas, his face a roadmap of sun-scorched wrinkles, approached our wagon. He leaned on a gnarled staff, his eyes squinting at Jed's confident posture. "Heard you talkin' 'bout the Buckskin Pass," Silas rasped, his voice dry as the desert wind. "Don't. It ain't a shortcut, it's a grave. Seen it swallow better men than you." Jed just laughed, a sound that was usually my favorite music but now grated on my nerves. "Thanks for the advice, old-timer, but we're not afraid of a little heat." I looked from Silas's grave face to Jed's dismissive smirk. A cold knot formed in my stomach. "Jed, maybe we should listen," I whispered, pulling him aside. "He seems to know what he's talking about." "Martha, my love," he said, his voice dropping to that persuasive, gentle tone I could never resist. "He's just a bitter old man who failed. We're not him, we're smarter, faster, trust me." He tilted my chin up, his thumb brushing my cheek. "This is our future, let's not be afraid to grab it." And I did. I pushed down the rising panic, silenced the voice of reason, and chose to believe in his beautiful lie. I nodded, and with that single gesture, we turned our wheels toward the path Silas had called a grave. 3 years had passed. The blistering sun of the Nevada desert was a distant, searing memory, replaced by the golden light of the California foothills. Martha's mine, aptly named the Providence, was a thriving enterprise carved into the mountainside. The rhythmic clang of steel on rock and the shouts of hardworking men were the symphony of her new life. She stood on a wooden overlook, her hands resting on the rail, no longer the naive woman from St. George but a seasoned proprietor, her gaze as unyielding as the granite they pulled from the earth. Her foreman, a burly man named Gus, approached her, tipping his hat. "Ma'am, there's a drifter at the gate asking for you. Says his name is Jedediah." Martha's posture stiffened, but her expression remained impassive. She gave a curt nod and descended the stairs. There, leaning against the gatepost, was a ghost. Not the dashing fiancé she once knew, but a skeletal figure in tattered clothes, his face a roadmap of hardship and failure. His eyes, once full of false promises, were now hollowed out with desperation. He saw her and staggered forward, his voice a choked whisper. "Martha, by God, it's you. I heard stories about the miracle of the Sierras, but I never dreamed." He collapsed to his knees in the dust. "I was a fool, Martha. A monster. I lost everything. Please, I'm begging you, for what we once were." She looked down at the broken man, the echo of his cruelty a faint, cold whisper in her mind. There was no fire of revenge, only the calm finality of a debt come due. "Get up, Jed," she commanded, her voice void of emotion. "You want to work? We need men to muck out the runoff ditches. It's the hardest, dirtiest job we have. You'll earn your keep." She turned her back on him, walking away without a second glance. He had abandoned her to die for a fantasy of gold. Now, his penance would be to toil for the reality of hers. He would pay his rent.